Here's the other statistic. In our marketplace, in last year, the average REO was 18% less selling price than an arm's length transaction, and the average short sale was 11% less than the average arm's length transaction. Add to that the idea that we're really not sure what we would call an arm's length transaction today, because if you're really arm's length, you might not be selling in this market because you have to compete with those short sales in those banks. So there's probably a situation involved. It could be a loss of job, it could be medical, it could be transfer, it could be lots of reasons. You could be 5 months behind and it's not a short sale or an REO. So we don't really have very many true arm's length sellers today, because you and I, who own our homes, if we're still making a living, we're not selling it in this market. But let me come back to what I mentioned earlier, and that's the move-up market. You see, if 62% of all those $400,000 homes are being purchased from bank-controlled transactions, those are not move-up. The bank, nor the seller who went short, is looking to buy the next step up. The other arm's length probably aren't looking to do that either, but they should be, because if you look at how it works out for you, if you can buy low and sell low, instead of selling high and buying high, you come out better. In this marketplace, you come out better. Your selling costs are low, like commission, for instance. Commission on $100,000 less is less. Your property taxes will be less on the new house under Prop 13. Your mortgage will be less because you get the advantage of these really low interest rates when we're in a tight and distressed market. And so if a seller actually has equity and can move, he probably should be doing that, because this is the bargain deal of the year. He sells his $470 house for $325, and he buys the $595 house for $415. He comes out much better. And in fact, as I mentioned, those loans don't require first-time home buyer for those minimal or no money down loans. He doesn't really have to have any equity to make that move, albeit it's better, but he can't come out with negative equity, right? So all of that considered, I think that there's something going on here that we need to be aware of, and that is perception. I led off my report talking about the astronauts on the moon, and this guy in Ghana who's looking at the moon and says, how can men stand on it? They're going to fall over. There's not room for them. Because it's this perception. And I remember the perception in 2005 that we all had, that everybody's got to buy a house, and you got to get on that fast-moving train, and you better grab the caboose when it goes down the track, or you're never going to own a home, because prices are going to go up, up, up. And we knew that wasn't true, but it's kind of the way we built it, and it's kind of, we began to believe it. We all thought, well, this can't keep going. Now we have people saying, well, this can't keep going either, but they keep saying, well, you know, maybe it's going to continue to go down. And our buyers have been told by us, the media, all their friends, that they shouldn't buy a house unless they can steal it. So we have the banks giving away properties that they don't need to. We already know they're selling them for 18% less than they need to be. Then we have buyers who are saying, I'm not going to buy a house unless I can steal it. I submit to you, everything we're buying today is a steal. Look at the cost of a house today compared to what it takes to replace it. And that is the long-term stabilized price, is what can you build it for today. And as you know, we're 25 to 30% under that number, even with the reduction in contractor profits and labor costs and everything else in building a home today. We're still way under. So we did gain 13,000 new people in our county in the last decade. Now, we only have census from 09 and from 2000 and 2010, and we gained 13,000 jobs. I'm sure those weren't all, not jobs, people. Those weren't all people that came in the first 5 years and a bunch disappeared. You know, we're still a growing county. We still have demand-supply issues, as you all know, sitting on a 4 to 5 month inventory where our action is. We do have an unofficial unemployment rate of probably close to double of what they claim. You know, in the statistics, we're saying we're 13% unemployed. But look at the realtors. You know, if you're a realtor and you were doing 3 transactions a month, now you're doing 1 transaction every 3 months, you're not unemployed, but you're underemployed. If my loan business is 50%, I'm underemployed. And then we have the cottage industries and the under the table and all the contractors who are no longer in that, who aren't on those statistical models that are run for employment and unemployment. So yeah, we probably have 25% of us hurting. But that doesn't mean that in a 5% market we didn't have 10% of us hurting. So everything's relative. And looking at the inventory, let's see, where else am I in there? We had, well, I already went over that, so I'm not going to go back to that. I moved ahead of myself too rapidly here. That comes from talking to a machine instead of a group. And I, of course, invite questions, so feel free to stop me at any time. Our income went up. Our income in El Dorado County is $67,000 per household. and that is 9% higher than the state average, so we are not suffering on that part in spite of our higher underemployment. And out of those people who earn that income in our county, 62% of our first-time home buyers can now buy the median priced home. That's your affordability index. The median priced home is $282,000. But, you know, as you know, most of these houses are selling at $250,000 and under. So they're very well qualified buyers. They are very anxious. They are coming in. They do want to buy. They're not positive it's the right time. It's our job to get the word across to them. And it is clearly our job to get the word back to the banks. You know, if you're given a chance to input into what your bank, you're working REO, and you're working with somebody that's bringing the properties to you to list. It's time that we, who are the front runners in this industry, we are the people they should be relying on to know. We need to be telling them, quit giving away the homes. It's time to stop giving away the homes. There's no need. There are buyers out there ready, willing, and able to buy. And in fact, in half the cases, they're not buying the bank-owned homes, so they don't have a corner on that market at all. So modifications, that's a problem. Loan modifications are unfortunately not well put together. They try and follow federal mandates, for instance under the HARP, the Home Affordable Refinance Program. That gets bunged up. Loan modifications, that's actually a refi. Loan modifications, they have federal guidelines under TARP on what the modification has to be. There's ratio guidelines. If you're under a 37 ratio in your income to debt ratio, you don't qualify for a modification. If you're over 55%, it's not believed you're going to be able to do the modification, you're not going to get it. So people without jobs cannot modify a loan. And the other thing we hear is, well, you know, the banks probably are making more money by going into foreclosure. That's urban legend that was based on the case with one bank, or Bank One, who got the sweet deal to buy up the IndyMac loans with a guarantee out the back that every house they foreclosed on, they couldn't not only lose money, they were guaranteed they'd make money on the deal. That's one instance that got brought out in the public eye, and nothing else has been proven by anyone that that's the case with any of the other banks. So, but on the other hand, if you have a person who wants to try for a modification, and particularly if they're in an option arm, and they can make the payment, they've got good ratios. I run into this. People come into me for advice. They say, you know, I'm 100,000 upside down, and I don't see myself getting out of here. The option arm, by the way, is no longer negatively amortizing for most of these people. When they recast to these low indexes, it stopped the bleeding, but the bleeding's there. And so that loan was going up, the property value was going down, and they're sitting here and they're saying, you know, I've got a 780 score, we make $150,000 a year, we're $100,000 upside down on our house, should we walk? And of course, I don't try and encourage that, but they look at their situation and they say, well, what's it do to my credit? That's really the question they're asking me. When can I get another loan? And you know, in reality, on a strategic walkaway, you're probably 3 years. At least today you would be if you'd done it 3 years ago. We don't know what they'll be doing 3 years from now. But these people are walking from homes because they can't get negotiated. And it would seem to me it would make more sense that the bank should be working with some of those people where it's just a question of negative equity. Because if the bank takes the home back on a strategic, they're going to lose more money than if they work something out. For instance, would that buyer have agreed to stay if the bank, say, cut $50,000 of that principal off? Would he then stay and service the loan? So we don't know. One other thing to remind you in closing, CHFA just announced that they do have their house refinance program available. They got $2 billion in funds. This is the same Cal HFA that we do the first-time homebuyer loans through with the 0.5% down and all that. The same entity is in charge of federally mandated funds that came to California for $2 billion to help homeowners with combinations of lowering interest rates, lowering payments, and lowering principal. 50-50 with the bank. So if somebody's upside down, they would go in 50%. They might drop a mortgage $75,000. $37,500 from the bank, $37,500 from the grant funds. These are grant funds, non-repayable. They also work on helping people with back payments. So if you have a client that's in distress, they really don't want to sell, but they don't know where else to go, they should check that with Cal HFA. And from that, I think I'll just leave it at that point. Remember this, we have a well-qualified and credit-worthy buyer pool today. We have an increasing population with people who are coming here with jobs or retiring and don't need them, who make up a good buyer pool. We still have a wonderful place to live. Everyone loves El Dorado County, the proximity to all the services, a great hospital system, everything else that retirees want here. If you look at the cost of a house today compared to the cost of replacing it, it's a stunning deal. And because of the low interest rates and the good programs, we have super affordability. So I think this is a time, and as you know, we're seeing plenty of buyers taking advantage of that. We're also seeing plenty of investors who really know what's going on today, taking advantage of that, and let's get the word out. You do a blog, you call your bankers, you put an article in the local paper or in the Bee, or get it on the news that, you know, the bleeding needs to stop, because it's the perception that breeds the reality, and it's time for us to get the proper perspective out there. Thanks for your time.